And the next we would go with the question to Dr. Hans Moshammer. He's the head of Department of Environmental Health at the Medical University in Vienna, MediUni Wien. And research interests are health effects of environmental exposures with a focus on air pollution, climate change, and occupational settings, and using an epidemiological method or epidemiological methods. And questions for you, Hans, would be how do the effects of RDF, SRF, and landfilling compare? The effects on public health of these two methods compare?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on the panel, and also thank you for this question. But you know, RDF, SRF is a nice words, but I think they do hide the fact that we're talking about waste. And waste is a waste of resources, of material resources, and of waste of energy that's put into the materials. So I think this shouldn't be the first question. The question, either landfill or burning, is, that comes later. First, we should ask how we can prevent waste. And so we have to strive for a circular economy, to have a cascadic use of the materials. And then the question, shall we dump it or shall we burn it, should be really the last question in this cascadic chain. Yes, but of course, when we ask this question, we are mostly concerned about organic waste, because other waste streams like minerals, glass, metals, and so on, they do not burn, and they often do not pose a problem in landfill. So they should be separated and treated separately, and of course, ideally also again used for material use. But the organic waste, this can either stem from natural sources, like the example of wood waste from construction materials, or agricultural or food wastes. And of course, for these waste streams, you could also use other waste like composting or anaerobic biogas production. So it's not a simple either or question as well. But of course, organic waste can also come from industrial processes, most importantly, of course, plastics and so on. And organic molecules do not just contain carbon, but also a lot of chemical energy in their bonds. This is why they can produce, and burning them, you can produce extra energy. But even if you don't burn it, but put it into the soil, into landfill, this energy is still there, and microbes, soil microbes, will harvest this energy. They will try to digest the chemicals and will also produce smaller molecules. Of course, the chemical processes in aerobic incineration and mostly anaerobic processes in a waste dump are not the same, but they all end up producing a lot of different, not well-defined, smaller chemicals, many volatiles, many very reactive, some toxic. And in a landfill, the control of what's produced and where it goes, either evaporating or filtering into the groundwater or whatever, is much more difficult than in a well-organized incinerator. Of course, I'm not talking about your typical backyard fire, where no control at all is about what's going out of it. But with the proper technology, with state-of-the-art quality controls for the fuel and for the incinerator, and they two must fit together, you have really the option to have a clean use of the energy, to make sure that if something goes wrong, you just shut off you can stop the process quickly. So you have a really good control over it. And as environmental health doctors, we also know which parameters can be used to assess the air quality. And it's mostly about what goes out the stack, about the air quality and the the parameters we use are relevant, so we can assess the quality and set limit values. And it's much better and easier to control than landfilling. So yes, the question landfill or incineration should be the last question in a long chain of decisions. But when it comes to the decision, of course, I'm in favor of state-of-the-art incineration.
Thank you very much for this. Any immediate reactions? Roland?
Yeah, I have to, everything was okay what Mr. Moshammer said. I really agree with it. But I have to mention the question of prevention. Yeah, you know, that's the highest. If you look at our hierarchy of waste, on the top, there's the prevention. We want to have waste prevention. But from my point, reality in our society is, let's say we are doing much, but it doesn't help. Yeah? And maybe we have to, from my point, we have to see that it's not about waste prevention, because waste prevention is product prevention, consummation prevention. It's a question not of the waste management, it's a question of society, it's a question of consummation. Yeah, that's really the reality we have to face. And on the one hand, we have, if we have more consummation, we have more products. And there is the first law of waste management, the first fundamental law of waste management, which is every product turns to waste. Every product turns to waste. It's just a question of time. And hopefully we have some interesting, let's say, if you look at the waste volumes in Austria, we have interesting developments. It looks like the last years, it looks like that's, let's say, the growth of economics. So the growth of waste volumes is not so high than the growth of economic development. It looks like that we are achieving decoupling about it, but it's on a high level, and waste is increasing also the next years. That's all prognosis are saying this. So we have to work on waste prevention, but we have to be realistic.
Yeah.
It will not. We have to do it, but we have also to solve our problems of the waste. And let's say the waste hierarchy is it's a very good concept. Yeah, waste prevention, reuse, but it's just small volumes, and recycling. And if we can't recycle it because of quality, because of other questions, no market or something else, using the energy is better than disposal.
I fully agree. And of course, this problem can't be solved by the waste management alone. We need reconsider.
We need something. That's clear. That's clear. We need something.
To reconsider our consumption, and especially, I think, our product design. Products must be more easily recycled or reused. But of course,
if you're looking at the single-use products, you know, there are silly products. We have silly products.
I know.
Yeah. If you look at, I've just worked on e-cigarettes. You know the e-cigarettes?
Yeah.
Yeah. E-cigarettes. You can buy them. You smoke it. Yeah, and you throw it away just after smoking. These are silly products.
Yes.
Because even the old cigarettes are better.
I agree.
Even though biologic.
Yeah, Hubert?
May I add also something? Perhaps I'm boring, so that I'm always no. What the problem I think is when we make a global balance about recycling, then we currently realize that only 6% of the total mass what we are producing or even want to send back to recycling loops is only recyclable. So the rest will be burned and should be disposed, or something has to be done. So I think it's really, as Roland already mentioned, it's a societal question and a question of sustainability. So that I think it takes more or less 30, 60, not generations, but years to educate all the following generations, to educate them that we have to be very, very careful with our starship called Earth. So I think we have limited resources, but the people are growing more and more. 8 billion are living on the Earth, and all want to have a certain income, or even want to get material, and they saw it on TV, and now I want to have it also at once by myself. So I think it's a huge mess, and that's following the note I did before. When we are talking about waste treatment, I think we should also talk about the emission pollution control. So that means when we have an NBT or a recycling plant, at the end of the day, everything will be burned or has to be landfilled on a sanitary manner. So that means when we are talking about splitting, MBT splitting, then we need the legal frame for these co-incineration and incineration plants. It was really funny to see in Germany that we had talked about installation of an MBT, and the cement works and the fossil-fired power plant were stood there. Sorry, after which legislation? Where's my frame? How do we manage it? And I think it's very important to put it both as a gear that should or has to be synchronized. So that's only what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We will continue with Hans Moshammer. Second question, maybe a little bit more general health risks. So would be interesting to know how both landfilling and RDF SRF health risks compare maybe to other health risks that are around there. Yeah.
Well, the question is good, but the answer is difficult. We are not talking about large risks. We're not talking about large exposures. So we do not expect acute effects. What we're talking about is chronic effects, most often with a long latency. So you don't have good data about the health consequences of modern state-of-the-art incinerators or landfills. The technology has improved for both. What we know is data we have are about old incinerators and old landfills. And yes, there are studies that do find effects. These effects are not very large, not large in relative risks, and they often concern rare diseases, like some special birth defects in the case of landfills, or some thyroid hormone disturbances in the case of one study in an old incinerator. So the absolute risks, even in this conservative approach where we look at old technologies, are not large. They are small compared to other involuntary risks, and of course even smaller compared to voluntary risks like some lifestyle choices. I think we talked about e-cigarettes and so on. But people don't want to compare the risks they are exposed to involuntarily to risks they well, they see also some opportunities from it. But still, these risks are small, are certainly small, but this doesn't mean that we should strive for even reducing it where it is possible. That is, we should use, of course, the best technology, and if it's possible to even reduce emissions below limit values, we should go that way. But with current limit values, the risks are really, really small and not relevant on an individual basis. And then, of course, it's always then you have to look at the regional situation. It's not just what's coming out at the stack, it's about the geography and the micrometeorology, how much ends up at the next neighbors and so on. So of course you need all this technology. You need the science. You need the distribution models, and then you can do your health impact assessment. But with the chemicals, with the indicators, we measure and we monitor both on the emission side and then at the exposure in the places where the people live. We can fairly well assess the effects, and that's not just what's coming out of this one stack. It's lots of other pollutant sources, many other incineration sources, be it motorized road traffic, home heating, and so on. So we have lots of sources that contribute to air quality, and the contribution of a single factory, a single cement plant or an incinerator that is well designed and has state-of-the-art cleaning technology is small compared to the other contributions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you that you talked about e-cigarettes, because I wanted to ask this already. Any comments?
E-cigarettes, of course, are much safer than the
real
traditional cigarettes, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, I just read it in the background. Yeah, it's also not completely clear what long-term effects are with these ones. But we are not talking about e-cigarettes, yeah, in this context.
No, I think the main problem with e-cigarettes is that young people use them. And
yeah, exactly. It's like an
starting to and be addicted to nicotine later on.
Yeah.